Welcome
All right.
back.
Welcome back to the Vintage Super League. I'm here joined by Rich Shea, who did a fantastic round of commentary. I really enjoyed the commentary that you and Dave put out last round. I thought it was awesome.
Well, I
So,
appreciate it. I mean, you always do amazing commentary, so this round should be fun.
well, I was dying it at like it's not often that I've wished, or it's been a long time since I've wished for a Zernor, but that was pretty good. So yeah, we just saw Kai actually lose to Bob's Cruciform or Crucible Zernor Fastbond deck, which had looked like it was off to a pretty bad start in Game 3 there.
It was, but library is an extremely powerful card. You could say it's great, and because Kai wasn't able to present a threat quickly, eventually Bob was just able to go to the library and read enough books so that Kai didn't have a chance to get back into the game. That slice and dice there was huge. The second one as well. Um,
Yeah, I mean, library, as you guys said many times, if once it gets going, it's really hard to stop. And Kai had the opposite kind of hand you would want against the library. He actually had a hand that I think was pretty good against a Moldifive with just a bunch of good cards in it, but with no threats. Yeah, he just lost straight up to library. I mean, that's basically
it
what happened.
was. One of the different decks make assumptions about what role they'll play in a matchup when they're being built. Storm, for example, sort of assumes it's the aggro deck, so if it meets a faster deck like Belcher, it's in trouble. And one of the assumptions that Delver makes as a deck is that it's going to be ahead card advantage wise, and then it has decisions about how to leverage that card advantage. Normally, it has card advantage over an opponent not only because of Gush, but because of its low land count, meaning that its average draws are better. But Library is an uncounterable way that the opponent can just get way ahead of you on cards, and there's at most one strip mine in a traditional Delver deck to stop it. I'm not playing anything that stops Library in my deck.
Yeah,
So it just attacks the deck in a way that the deck is not built to handle.
yeah, and we pretty much saw that. And speaking of Delver, actually, we're about to see the same matchup that you played earlier tonight, which is Ifro on Delver against Randy on Belcher.
Well, having been on the receiving end of this matchup twice, it's not an easy spot for the Delver player.
No, and neither of you guys have Null Rod. That's
No, I
a
sure
card
missed
that
that.
some of the Delver decks play.
I was lamenting that for the last 2 weeks, actually. That had I been expecting, I thought there was a non-zero chance that Randy might be on Belcher, having seen him play it in the holiday event, but I would never expect this from Chris. Um, I thought maybe workshops, maybe a bluish aggro deck, maybe something with meddling mage. Was not expecting to get belched.
Yeah, but they both showed up with it, and I guess are now 4-0 combined because Randy got to play a bonus match.
It's a brilliant deck. It's an extraordinarily powerful deck, and props to Danny for making it. And I know that Randy and Chris both did some really, really powerful things with tuning it. So I have to give them credit. They've done really well with a good deck and a very strong build of it. So nothing but respect for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I lost to it week one as well, so it's a pretty rough deck to face. Though the Delver deck, I think, is reasonably well equipped, even though it doesn't, even without Norod. The Delver deck is at least a deck full of very cheap threats and a lot of permission and card draw. So of the blue decks, it's a reasonable deck to bring against that deck.
It is. I've found in testing that it's hard to get ahead in the matchup as the Delver player. Um, the deck just depletes your resources so quickly that you often want to spend some time resources to get ahead. I think you mentioned that last week, had I pitched the mental misstep instead of a draw spell, I would have been in much better shape. That sort of decision making is difficult because being not having the counter when you're asked a tough question by the Belcher player just means that you lose the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Alrighty, let's take a look at the players. This is the matchup we've got here. Randy against Ifro. Randy at
Yeah.
2-0 again because he played a bonus match last week.
Right, right. Randy on the pride side this time. Efro on the power side.
Though Belcher, of course, having much more actual power cards.
That's true.
And you see Randy as one of the actual numerous Hall of Famers in the Vintage Super League. We've got a Hall of Fame dense field here, uh, and you see that he's also got a Pro Tour win, something that his opponent has yet to acquire. He looked like he may have had a pretty good shot last weekend, but
It was
unfortunately,
an exciting weekend for him, yeah. And you
yeah,
see median Pro Tour finish 18th from Randy. That's not a statistic that most people can say that they've finished that well, that consistently amongst the Pro Tours they've played in.
yeah, definitely. And then here's the deck he's been running. It's like you said, the same deck Chris is playing. I think about 73 of the same cards. I think they may be one or two
Yeah,
off.
it doesn't have balance, which I thought was a really neat addition.
Yeah, but
But
we've seen this
it's
deck in action plenty so far.
yeah, you try to tell people, no, vintage really isn't about turn one kills. No, there's a long time, and then this happens.
Yeah,
Um,
this is one of the
and
more
this deck
vintagey decks.
aggressive fashion, but it's also capable of
So I know, taking a look here at Eric Froehlich's stats, he had to have some last minute updates because he added a GP top eight and a Pro Tour top eight and a GP win to his resume over the last week and a half or so. So he's more on fire than any other player in the world right now. We'll see if that carries over to the Vintage Super League or if he left it all in DC there, which it's a pretty brutal match. I was able to watch his match in the top eight against Jesse Hampton, and hey, four Pro Tour top eights, even if he wasn't able to win one, was still obviously incredible. So I think we'll be looking at Ifro potentially adding his name to the Hall of Fame ranks this year. We'll get to that discussion in a couple months, I suspect. And here another Delver deck that we've actually seen Delver in every match so far. They've all had somewhat slight differences, but it's all the same basic deck of Delver, Pyromancer, cheap counters, and cheap card draw. Alrighty, Rich will be back momentarily, but I'll be able to handle this for the time being. Potentially not quite as deterministic as Rich, but I'll do my best. So most importantly, let's see who's on the play here, since that in this sort of matchup, that Randy's a turn one deck in every sense of the word. So if Ifro is on the play, it becomes very very different. And given that Ifro kept,
I think I've come back here.
oh, there we are.
All right, we're back, and we see that Efro has library, and library is less good against decks that are good at winning the game on the first turn.
Yeah, both because it's not an attrition battle as much, and because you can't really afford to play library turn one. Like, even let's say Ifro's on the play, which we're going to find out shortly. Can he afford to play turn one library and leave no counter up? I think he has to play the Scalding
I don't
Tarn and
think
leave
I'm
Spell
that
Pierce up.
brave.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I'm brave enough to say library go against the mono blue Belcher deck.
yeah, I would be surprised if Ifro did end up playing turn one library. And honestly, on seven cards, I think there's a good chance Ifro's on the play because I think those seven cards are not keepable on the draw against the Belcher deck. And in fact, Ifro does lead with
Yeah,
Scalding Tarn.
right. I like Scalding Tarn here. I mean, there's nothing saying that you can't try to build to the library.
Yeah.
I actually don't think I would play Pyromancer next turn. I think both to leave the Spell Pierce open and to try to get onto the library, I would leave library up and just pass the turn with 2 mana.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And here you see where having a Gataxian Probe would be useful. If I guess if Ifro could see Randy's hand, he would play a Spell Pierce there, then it would get misstepped, so it's about the same. Randy, of course, doesn't have a third mana yet. He's on 2 mana with Opal and Chrome Mox providing all the mana he's got, but he's got a Time Twister and two Forcibles and a misstep, so I think this seems like a very keepable hand.
Right. It does. There's so many outs here, and if he gets any mana source, he can Time Twister with counter backup.
Yeah, and the key, unfortunately, not really the mana source he's looking for. as with pretty much any game with this deck, if it ever just draws the Tolarian Academy naturally, it just, it's a huge favorite to
Yeah,
win the game.
yeah, yeah. Both of my matches on here against this deck have involved a natural Tolarian Academy, which is just this nightmare scenario. I've been testing again, keeping the library from arriving. Sorry, keeping the academy from arriving is just the most important thing you're trying to do. And when it just happens naturally, you're just in a wretched spot. Wretched spots. Looks like Ifro is now able to go to the library. So now, despite delaying it a turn, Ifro now can start taking in 2 cards a turn, which puts more pressure on Randy to draw a mana source quickly.
Yeah, and Randy so far has failed to do so. And even though Ifro did have to take a little bit of time initially to get the library going, things are looking all right for him now, especially since he's picked up his own Pyroblast and a Mental Misstep. So he
Right.
actually might be able to win a counter war here. Though he might actually have to discard a Young Pyromancer. I think that's the play here.
Yeah,
He
I
can
don't like
cast
tapping out the
Pyromancer
Young
Gush, discard
Pyromancer
a
here.
bunch of
I
cards.
think putting
Yeah.
shields down is. Yeah, I mean the third Pyromancer won't do much for you, nor is it a blue card. So I think you would discard that.
Yeah.
But that's actually okay because library itself is a threat. Library is a thing that will eventually win you the game.
Yeah, and I like the idea of just pass with spell because the thing is you have 2 counters in your hand that cost mana. So if you cast anything, you're not able to keep Spell Pierce and Pyroblast up. So
Right. So, oh, Randy drew Ancestral. Is he just going to go for it here?
I think he
I guess
has
he is.
to, and they're definitely going to fight over it.
They are. And one of the things that's worth noting is if Randy doesn't win this fight but does sufficiently deplete Ifro's hand, then he could buy some time from the library. And of course, Randy
Yeah.
doesn't know that Ifro's hand is full of counters, so Randy could just be winning the game on the spot here.
Well, I think Randy probably does know that just because there's not a whole lot else Ifro could have given that he didn't play a land, but he still has to
That's
go for it.
fair.
I think
Now,
there's no way Randy
would you
just
play to the
passes.
Mox Opal first to play around Spell Pierce? I guess you can't really play around Spell Pierce, so there's nothing really to. Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess Randy can't even bluff anything here, can he? Because there's nothing in his deck that he could have used that for.
yeah, and I think this is going to play out. It doesn't really matter even which order people play the counters in, just because I mean the missteps are going to go first, and then the spell pierce, then the force, then the pyroblast, or some other way like that. And both
Right,
players are pretty much committed at this point. Like Ifro cannot let this resolve, and Randy has to fight over it. So,
right. So
and
if he
yeah,
pitches the Force, then he could still perfectly live to draw a mana source and cast that Twister in his hand next turn.
yeah, which is what I assume he'll do. This does give Ifro a pretty good shot. I mean, Ifro's going to be able to refill even without the library active immediately. Gush will turn the library back on, and he's got both Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. So I
Yeah,
think Ifro's going to be in pretty good shape here.
I agree. I think this definitely favors Ifro, though the Belcher deck's raw threat density means that getting ahead is not the same as winning.
No, and Ifra does have to give mind that he doesn't want to get a young Pyromancer out sooner rather than later. So he's got 5 cards in his graveyard, so he can't quite just cast a 1 mana Cruise or 2 mana Dig.
He could play Young Pyromancer and then Gush.
Yeah, I like opening with that. So if you
It
play
takes him
young,
right back into library, and then he can tap library, draw a card, and then play a land drop.
yeah, and have if not Mental Misstep up, it looks like Ifro's actually not on the library plan. He's just on the play
Oh,
Gush, then maybe play Dig Through Time plan to look for Force of Will here.
okay.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. You don't really need the
Yeah.
long-term card advantage.
Huh. He drew Ancestral. That's fun too.
Looks like yeah, Ancestral plus Pyroblast. So pretty good shot
Right?
of just playing a Volcanic and playing Ancestral, leaving Pyroblast up.
I like that. I like that. I mean, if it doesn't resolve, it's by no means the end of the world for Ifro here, and if it does resolve, it's great. So either way, it's fine. And it looks like Ifro is going to be able to have Ancestral, and if nothing else, have 2 counters in his hand.
Yeah, I think that Ifro knows Randy can't counter anything because Randy would have kept fighting over the his own Ancestral. So, and now
There's the
Ifro
four.
force. This is the kind of game that Delver wins. It's got a Pyromancer in play, and it's got enough counters to cover Randy's next two plays. And
Hmm.
he's going to be able to threaten Randy. Randy's not going to have time probably to find a third threat. And he's even missing mana for his first two.
He is. Those first few turns of not hitting anything from Randy, if this Mox had come a couple turns earlier, it would have been a very different game. Um, he can actually run out the Belcher, which would force Ifro to force here, which is
Well, he's one mana short of belching. He can
and he
he
can
can
play it. Oh no, he can't play it. You're right.
yeah.
No, it's just
He
Twister then, and that gets
he's
rebbed.
he's gonna play Twister, and yeah, for sure, Ifro's gonna Pyroblast it. You don't use your Force of Will on a blue card when you have a Pyroblast.
Right.
And so now Ifro's gonna have 5 power in play, and then next turn he's gonna have a dig through time up to find potentially a second Force of Will if he really needs it. Might as well take a look at what Randy's last card is too.
There's a Gitaxian probe, and it gets even better when it makes an elemental friend. And
Library.
library's back, yeah. So that's the second game in a row we've seen where library has been powerful, and even here where library's not really the best in this matchup, it's let Yufro quash the initial wave from Randy and not let Randy or to get ahead in cards while Randy is trying to refuel for the second round of threats.
Yeah, Library was only made good because Randy stumbled for about 2 turns on turns 2 and 3, but it was good. It was much
It
better than
was
almost any other Ifro could have had in that spot. And here's where Ifro
absolutely
has full information. He knows it's a Belcher, so he knows he doesn't have to worry about something like Mind's Desire. So pretty likely that he just lets Grim Monolith resolve here.
yeah, especially when countering, it would take him off of what he's trying to do, and he has dig through time and a pretty full graveyard to go with that dig through time.
Yeah, I could see Ifro casting Dig. He could just dig in response. He's almost assuredly going to dig this turn anyway. You might as well, like in response to the Belcher, that is, you might as well dig to see what else you're going to be doing.
Right, there could be like a Mist Moon Griffin that you really want to pitch to your force. I mean, it's always good to have more options if you're going to do it anyway.
I've seen that happen in Legacy. I have not yet seen that happen in Vintage. It is a sweet combo, though.
It is, it is.
All right, so here's
And
the Treasure Cruise replacement. Honestly, Cruise being getting restricted has not dampened the enthusiasm of the Vintage Super League for Delver decks.
no, it's true. It made Delver worse because costing one
Certainly.
mana is a lot more than costing two, but the Delver decks are already so good. I
Yeah.
was I was hoping, and LSV, I thought it might have been you who was going to break gifts wide open, but I wasn't able to do it.
I didn't have the time. Like I didn't basically it came down to playing a gifts deck that I had tested 0 games with or playing something else. And I just didn't feel
That's fair.
confident in the gifts deck I'd played 0 games
Fair.
with.
I in my testing of different gift decks, I found that the Delver decks were still able to get underneath them
Yeah,
because Gifts is still trying to resolve a 4 mana spell, and uh, Delver is really good at beating decks that are slow and trying to do that.
for sure. All right, so at this point, Randy's not technically dead because he's going to get hit down to 4, but he's got one draw step, one even with the lightning bolt. He's got one draw step to potentially draw like a draw 7 to get back into it, or just like a time vault. But oh
Could
no,
he? Oh, I guess he could draw a Time Vault, but oh
yeah,
no, Ifro has a Force of Will, so Randy is dead.
yeah. There's no card I think that can save Randy at this point, barring him
Yeah.
having a slice and dice in his deck somehow.
A Slice and Dice, and I guess a Simian Spirit Guide.
Well, he's got Mox Opal, so Mox Opal
Oh,
has
that's true. Okay, so he's halfway there.
even though Mox
Yeah.
Opal is just a really bad Mox Sapphire in this deck.
There are a lot of decks where other Moxes are just really bad Mox Sapphires, in all fairness.
Yeah, so Ifro finds the lightning bolts as we see the one go to his side even before he delivers lethal.
So that was a great showing for Library. That's
Yeah,
um,
library has been very successful today.
it's been a good day for Alexandria. Absolutely.
So Randy doesn't change his deck a whole lot, pretty much in any matchup, but in this matchup least of all. Like I would imagine that this is where like
Yeah.
another mental misstep comes in a defense grid, maybe a pact negation as well. I can't imagine that this is where he wants. Certainly not like Leyline of Anticipation, and probably not even Mishra's Workshop.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it
No,
is,
I
but
think
it
I
doesn't
mean
seem like it.
no, I think those are both just for matchups against workshop decks.
Yeah,
Mishra's workshop. I mean, without Mishra's workshop, the deck actually can't win on turn one Chalice for zero go. It actually can't do anything. And workshop lets you try to do something. So, but the problem with workshop, and the reason they're not in the main, I'm assuming, is that you want Belcher to be a deterministic, if you will, kill. And by adding Mishra's workshops, you make it so it's not.
yeah. So also you have cards like Pact Negation that really don't do anything against Mishra's Workshop. Ifro
Right.
likewise doesn't change his deck a lot. He does get another Pyroblast
I'd
and a
be all
Fluster
about the
Storm, and then the
pulverize
Ingot
here.
Chewers have been good. Pulverize is pretty nice.
I
It's
would bring
mainly
in
for
pulverize.
workshops, but no, you're right. This is definitely a matchup where you can just set Randy down to no cards in play.
Yeah. I mean, there's one permanent in Randy's deck that survives getting crushed by a giant elephant, and that card doesn't do anything once the elephant has arrived.
Yeah. I
Um,
I been putting Pulverize in my Delver deck sideboard for a while, and I've yet to actually cast it. It sounds so great to me.
I actually have been trying to test them myself at different points on Magic Online, and yeah, it's never actually come up. But I think it would be a really exciting thing to do.
Yeah, I mean you're only siding in Pulverize for matchups where it does well what the name would suggest. So
Yes,
I imagine if you
yes.
ever get to cast it, you're pretty happy.
It also has. It's got a great picture of an elephant. Just looks like he's stomping around in a marketplace, destroying everything. So there's
Yes.
a lot in that card's favor.
And
All right, so
here's the library that or the academy that we've talked about, but
oh man,
Randy
but
so
nothing to go with it.
Randy kept this hand. You'll notice because Ifro's already on 6 cards. So Randy's just going to
Right,
say go on turn one. He's just going to hope to draw a 0 drop, and if he draws a 0 drop, he just explodes.
right, yeah. And of course, Ephro has no way of knowing that a random Mox could be,
Yeah.
game over for him here. But
On
at
the
the
other
same
hand,
time, he could counter it.
if Randy says go turn one, Ifro goes Volcanic go because he's going to leave up Pierce Pyroblast. Oh wait. Ifro's got another card sitting to the left. That's not his full hand.
Oh no, Randy did mulligan.
Yeah, Randy
Okay,
did. Okay, I saw 6 cards. Thought for sure
mulligan
he had
into a
kept,
first
but
turn twister. So with this, hand, it looks like Randy can um, he can diminishing returns on the first turn.
and it looks like it's going to resolve depending
Yeah.
on because Ifro kept a hand. We're going to get the hand moved over so we can actually see it. We're going to so
Oh, okay.
either way, Ifro's got a Mox Ruby as his 7th card, but he kept the hand without Force of Will, though a very good hand. I would have kept this hand as
It's
well.
a very good hand. Yeah.
I think
I can't fault
yeah,
Ifro for keeping this.
if you run scared, if you mulligan hands like this, that is Belcher gains in win percentage. I believe that is
I
one of the ways
agree.
Belcher does better.
I think Ifro's keep is good because he has the mental misstep, so it's not like he doesn't have anything to do in the first turn. And he has an extremely solid hand should he get a turn.
Yeah, he's going to get to mental misstep the key, but diminishing returns is still going to happen here.
Yeah.
Which isn't a disaster for Ifro, honestly. Randy ends up with a Chrome Mox and a tapped Grim Monolith, which doesn't have a ton of value. It has some, but not infinite. So Randy's really
Yeah.
up just one permanent here.
The way this could go really badly for Ifro is if you somehow get stuck with an unplayable hand. And I don't
Yeah.
think Randy has an unplayable hand if he has a blue
Well,
Mox in play.
if Randy ends up exiling his Tolarian Academy, the game does get much harder for him to win. It's certainly winnable,
That's
but
true.
it gets harder.
Oh, so he has a very reasonable hand over here, but without any threats.
And
Do we see what got exiled for Randy?
yeah, we'll take a look at what got exiled. It does not look like a Tolarian Academy did, though.
Uh,
So just
no, a Tezzeret, nothing,
yeah,
nothing
basically
extremely
it's just
important.
Academy. Like all the other cards are fairly interchangeable. So Randy hit a his Gitaxian probe here wants to hit a threat because he's got mana and Force of Will. So if he hits a threat, he can
Yeah.
resolve it.
If he hits a threat, he could win the game on the spot here, depending on what he
Yeah,
draws, right? I
he
mean,
has enough mana to play and activate Belcher with Lion's Eye Diamond.
yeah. And it looks like
And
Ifro's thinking about forcing this. I,
Randy is probably not
not
marking down Eric's hand here.
right. Right. Moto does not automatically record the hand content. So I actually keep when I'm playing here, I actually keep a thing of paper here to write down opponent's hands with.
Well, normally when I'm playing Magic Online, I'm at a computer, so I actually just take a little screenshot of their hand.
My computer can really handle running Notepad and Moto at the same time. So,
So looks like Randy did hit Preordain, which is very good because that basically just lets him look at three more cards. It's close to Ancestral
right.
here. And again, he's got Force of Will. He's got everything he needs. He found the Belcher,
And
so
there's the Belcher, and this game is over.
well, not 100%. Randy could actually still hit Tolarian Academy before he hits 18
That's
other
true.
cards,
That's true. Okay, you're
which
right.
does give Ifro outs, or I guess 17 because Ifro is gonna have to cast Force.
You're right. It's non-deterministic. Let's see what we get here. So now I bet Randy's wishing that he had exiled the Academy with Fishing Return.
Yeah, that is the funny part. So now Ifro's out is for Randy to miss on Belcher, and then Ifro actually doesn't have to kill it right away. Randy ends up with Mox Opal, Chrome Mox, and a tapped Monolith in play, which is not enough to activate Belcher. So,
Right. And
you know,
it's
with only 37 cards left in his deck, actually, Randy is favored, but he's not a huge favorite here.
um
Like, it's actually
so you
very
would need to
close.
get into one additional mana source. So I mean, on average, this should be lethal, but
But
it's only
not by very
slightly
much at all,
favorable.
right? Like,
Not by much, no.
I mean, with 37 cards left in his deck, and Randy has to hit 17 before he hits the Tolarian Academy. So, of
So
course, he then ends up getting to put Tolarian Academy on top. So it looks
ooh,
like
so he misses.
he misses. He puts all these cards on the bottom, which means he's not drawing Academy yet. Which means he just has to hope to draw a mana source now.
Right. So do you think that there would have been a reason for Randy to wait?
I don't think so. The fact that he has to discard his hand to Lion's Eye Diamond is certainly part of the calculus. I mean, I don't really see
That's
what waiting
fair.
gets you. You also want to do it now, so if you untap and then draw a mana source, you get to activate it again.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a good point.
So now the question is, does Ifro cast one of his cantrips to look for a Force of Will or Ingot Chewer, or does he leave Pyroblast up or play a Delver? I think Delver's a pretty
I don't
clear
like
last.
I don't like leaving a counter up here, so I think it's
Well,
and he found a force.
leaving
And
Force of Will up's not too bad.
Force of Will stop any mana that Randy tries to play at this point
Yeah,
because the Academy is not the top of his library.
yeah. Oh, this is pretty brutal for Ifro. Had he left Pyroblast up, not saying that's the right play, because I don't think it is. Had
Yeah,
he left Pyroblast up, he would have been able to Pyroblast Period, and I think he'd be pretty happy with that.
I I think I would have preordained on Ifro's turn just because I like preordaining a lot more, but I definitely would have run out of counter.
I think Ifro's hope was to draw a way to cast an Ingot Chewer and a way to cast it, but he's drawing pretty slim there, like to draw both of those in three cards.
Agreed. The deck only has two cards that would permit actually casting the Ingot Chewer there.
Yeah, Mox Ruby and Lotus. So I assume Randy's resolving Preordain now. I don't think you can force Preordain here. I mean, you could, but it doesn't seem
Yeah,
good to do
I
that.
agree.
You do probably
So
want to
it
force
looks
the
like
map, though.
I think you have to force the map. Yeah.
So Ifro does so, pitching Dig Through Time because he's only got now four cards in his graveyard. He's going to cast Preordain so he can put this young Pyromancer on the bottom.
Hmm.
Ideally, he finds, I guess, ideally a Force of Will, but if failing that, a land All right, Ingetshur. So
Oh, Ingetjord's very good here. Yeah.
one turn. Oh, and then Randy has the
Oh,
Mox, which
wow.
he
And
might have
Randy
appeared in
for
both. He may have appeared in both to the top.
wow.
All right.
That was a very good game. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty nice sequence of plays there. I I'm curious how likely it is that Ifro wins that game after getting belched down to six because I mean Randy had to draw a mana source to get through a forest, then another mana source, but his deck's just all mana, so
Right.
it's probably pretty close.
Yeah, I think given that Ifro didn't have an elemental in his hand to chew on the Belcher, I think that hugely favors Randy. And
Yeah,
that's after the less than 50% of Randy missing on the first Belching.
yeah. So things get a lot better. I mean, this is the deck that most harshly punishes you for being on the draw. Had Ifra been on the play that game, he would have won that game, I think, fairly easily because he had Pyroblast and Spell Pierce. But that's, of
I
course, part
think
of the
so.
game. I mean, he was on the draw. So,
Right. I mean, part of playing vintage is accepting that the coin flip's an important part of it. I mean, workshop decks are
oh, yeah.
decks that love being on the play. So,
Oh, yeah.
it's the format, really.
You certainly signed up for that. So I have no problem with that. It is funny that there are some matchups like, the Delver Mirror being on the play is not even always a good thing. Like, I would choose to play,
It's
but it's not like a
true.
huge advantage. Well,
And we're getting an apology for Moto having some issue. Oh, that's fun.
well, at the very least, Randy
And
has Academy in his opening hand again.
yeah,
So there is
Randy has quite an opening hand there, and I thought I saw a Lotus in Efro's hand,
Ifro has
but I guess
Lotus Time Walk Delver, so
that's a very powerful start.
yeah, but Randy
Uh,
has Academy in his opening hand again, which is, you know, pretty tough to beat.
it is. I didn't see what else went with the Academy, but Magic Online.
It, yeah, it looked like Randy's only mana source was the Chrome Mox, but Mox plus Academy plus Ancestral is a good start. So
It is. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. If Randy wins this, then the Belcher deck will have been undefeated through 2.5 weeks of vintage play here.
yeah, that's starting to look like a trend. I mean, I think seeing, when you're like 2-0, 3-0, it's like that could have just happened, but yeah, being 5-0 is you're getting to the point where you have to start looking at what the results are.
I'm currently providing, I think, half of the losses against Belcher, so I'm not a huge fan of that. But
Yeah.
now the deck's very legitimate. It's an extremely good deck.
Yes, I think that I don't think anyone would argue against that.
Also, I'm seeing here on the Twitch feedback that I am frozen. I am in Pittsburgh, and it is kind of cold here, so
I suspect we're
that's not.
both intermittently freezing here, but we'll find out
I'm not
soon.
surprised. I'm not surprised. Uh, okay, apparently we're having some Magic Online issues.
Yeah, well,
Hopefully we'll have that
we can
sorted out soon.
looking forward to my matchup tonight. I'm playing against Tom Martell, who's playing a kind of anti-combo dredge since he has Unmask in his main deck as well as Mental Misstep. I'm not looking forward to that. I think he's a favorite there.
Well, I tested a bit of Dredge against Storm, and a lot of it depends on the exact configuration, but it's a pretty interesting matchup. Both decks are built to be the turbo aggressive deck.
Certainly.
All right, looks like we're starting Magic Online here, and I do think your deck choice for this is very interesting. It's a very cool deck.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like playing Doomsday. All right, so looks like some good hands on the parts of both players. I mean, it looks like
so up
Ifro's.
top we see um, two Delvers, Forest Time. Gosh,
So
I think if you're Ephraim, you definitely keep that hand. And Randy's, but it looks like he didn't keep that hand.
he did
I think I
not.
would have kept Delver Delver Predain with force backup.
He didn't have Preordain. He had Delver Time Walk, Force, and then Young Pyromancer and Lotus.
You didn't have a cantrip in it?
No, he didn't have a cantrip or a land, as far as I could tell.
I,
So
I, I saw the no land.
yeah,
Why is everyone in the chat saying Paul?
because Paul started saying it. I don't know why.
Fair.
Randy's hand is a monster. Randy's hand is very good here. I think Randy is going to end up going like turn one Mox, maybe imprint a mental misstep
Oh,
or a pact of negation, cast Prudent, cast Ancestral, cast mental misstep if he needs to.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Randy's hand here is one of those devastating hands that sometimes happens with this deck.
yeah, and I think Ifra's going to go, maybe turn one Lotus Delver land. That's
I
yeah.
like that.
Ifra,
That leaves it advances the threat and leaves the counter out.
yeah, Ifra's not in great shape though. His hand does not match up well against Randy's. I mean, he mulliganed and Randy just has a very like a hand that's both resilient and fast, which is kind of what the dream is.
Yeah. It looks like it's continuing to go on about Paul. It looks like it has Storm or something. And,
I mean, Dave seems to like it, but most people want the chat to be more productive. So, uh, we see here Randy didn't counter the Delver, which I think makes sense because Randy's looking to end the game fast enough that I don't think the Delver is going to be a huge issue.
I agree with that.
Randy is
You,
also anticipating pitching a land to Chrome or pitching a spell to Chrome Mox, so you don't want to spew off your missteps too quickly then.
so I would probably pitch the Pact of Negation here. You can't pay for it quite yet, and it's not really safe to cast at this point.
Uh, I actually might lean towards pitching Mental Misstep just because you have two and Ifra only has three cards in hand. I think you might want the misstep a few turns from now.
Hmm.
So Randy agrees with you though. He pitches the pact. I assume you
I
lead
like
with
playing the map here, and then
yeah yeah. I
if it
definitely like.
arrives,
No,
oh,
I agree with you. I like playing map and then you can go Academy plus. Though I guess Randy's
right.
hoping just to draw into a bunch of zero drops. Maybe this is actually better. This does seem better.
Well, I would also, if I'm playing on Efro's side, I'm going to throw whatever counter magic I have at the map.
Yeah, that is
I
another
would
reason.
I would force the map there blind.
So Randy actually has incentive to not cast Time Twister here. I think he would rather just try to preordain into a threat instead, because
I
Ifra's
like
only
leaving
on
the
three
preordain.
cards. Yeah, preordaining here seems pretty good.
There's a lot that can go right with it.
Yeah, even if you miss horribly, you can still then just Time Twister, even if you
Right.
don't really want to, or you can just wait a turn or two. I mean, it's possible if you wait and then Ifra doesn't do anything great on his next turn, then you're pretty happy either way. So. So it looks like
He has
Randy is
Mana Crypt.
contemplating, yeah, Mana Crypt, and you only keep the Mana Crypt if you're gonna cast Time Twister, which, again, is still probably in heavy favor for Randy just because he has so much mana. But I still would not love to cast Time Twister against an opponent with three cards in hand who's not doing anything.
I agree. What's the other card that he's seeing? Do we see that?
I assume he already banned the other card. Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm Randy, I think here, let's see, if you bin Mana Crypt and then draw a spell, I guess he kept Mana Crypt, so he's just going for the Time Twister now. I
Looks
wonder if
like it.
I wonder if Ifro has the read here, because if Ifro sacks Lotus to Pyroblast, it ends up being much worse for him because he just gets misstepped. I wonder if he has the read and
Right.
just lets the Time Twister resolve. Also, it's not clear that it's bad for Ifro to have Time Twister resolve here. I mean, I guess it is because Randy's casting it, so you
That's
have to
really
assume it is. But
interesting, though. I would still rub it here, but I think it would be better if he didn't. But I still would, not knowing Randy's hand.
yeah,
I
it's an
mean,
interesting
this card
spot.
is really scary.
And
Oh, and then so
Ifro
it looks
doesn't.
like Ifro has a mental misstep and a force, and Randy has
No
a
threats.
force and a mental misstep.
Yeah, Randy's on 0 threats though. He's
Randy
on
does
millions of mana.
Randy doesn't have a threat, right?
I almost like
So
Randy
it's
not even.
actually
I almost like if I'm Randy not even playing any of these cards. I mean, he has Mind's Desire in his list, so I think keeping that as a really live draw seems good to me.
that that makes sense. I mean,
Like he's
do
already at
you
20 mana with the candelabra. Like, I mean, how much are you getting out of casting Grim Monolith or Soaring here? Because at this point, there's no way Ifro's countering a mana source. Like Ifro just knows Randy. Like he's already conceded the mana battle. He doesn't have a strip mine in sight. Like
right,
there's no reason to counter any of the mana cards. So you might as well just let Randy go nuts and hope you can stop whatever threats he has.
right. I
You might
think this
mental
is
you
worth
might
mental
yeah.
misstepping.
I agree with you. I think that mental missteps already getting kind of bad here, but I guess Ifro's just off it.
No, he
He's
did.
not worried.
He didn't misstep it. So it looks like Randy bluffed and Efro did not call him on it. But
Yeah,
that does mean Randy has an active force of will online.
that is the advantage of playing Soul Ring, Grim Monolith, and Candelabra, but Randy's got nothing to protect here, and Ifro just drew another Force of Will.
So this actually looks pretty good for Efro here. He has
Oh,
two
yeah.
forces and a step online, and he doesn't have any land. He can ponder for the land since the blue man is not really doing much otherwise. He could also crack the Lotus to play a young Pyromancer.
I think it's very reasonable, especially since Flusterstorm is unlikely to fully counter anything. Let's say if you Lotus, play Pyromancer, cast Ponder, you still have double Force up, and then
Right.
you could also evoke Ingot Chewer on like Candelabra, even though you don't really need to do that anyway.
It looks like he's just pondering here though.
Yeah. I guess maybe he wants to save his Lotus to cast Dig at some point. I don't know. I would rather just get the young Pyromancer into play. You have a
Yeah,
lot of counters in your hand.
I would also invest in the threat now to because eventually Randy will draw something, and he behooves Efro to stop that from happening.
So now that you have the mana, you could Ingot Chewer. Again, all the targets seem irrelevant except maybe Candelabra, which essentially doubles Randy's mana. But Randy's already on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Yeah,
13. 13 mana even if the Candelabra got removed, which
yeah. I mean,
is
Randy can
effectively infinite.
still hardcast its Emrakul next turn even without the Candelabra, so I don't think the mana denial plan is all that effective here.
Yeah. The unfortunate part is that there's no way that Randy like resolves an important artifact and then passes the turn. Like I mean Randy's not going to just play Time Vault and pass the turn. If a Belcher resolves, Ifro's dead. So I think that Ifro might. It's a pretty good consideration to use Ingot Chewer. I guess there's just no reason to though. It just doesn't help. He's got Randy just has too much
Yeah,
mana.
it's possible that Ingachu's best role here is to
Get hard
help you if you
cast.
draw a library rather than being cast.
Oh yeah, that's even better point. So basically, what Ifro needs now, since his force trades with Randy's and his other force trades with Randy's first threat, is Ifro to not or for Randy not to draw a threat. Basically, he needs Randy not to draw two threats in about four turns or so. I imagine that's how long Ifro
Right,
needs to hold. Maybe three. If Ifro
right.
draws Time Walk, he can cut a turn off the clock.
Agreed. I
I
think this is a really interesting game, and a lot of this will come down to exactly what Randy does and what Randy has. But
well,
I
more
think
more more
Efro
what Randy
gets
draws
so much.
because
I think
go
Efro
ahead.
gets so much by casting the Pyromancer here.
Yeah, I think it buys him at like a full turn. I don't know. I would have been in favor of just casting Pyromancer, but
I would have led with it and then pondered.
yeah, agreed. Let's see. So, given that Randy has enough mana to deploy anything he draws, yeah, it really just comes down to. It looks like Ifro is going to go with the Pyromancer. So, I still like this, even though I would have done it first. I still do like getting a
Yeah,
Pyromancer.
I agree. I think it's very important to set up a threat here.
And Ifro cutting
It's
off the
true.
potential of double threat turns. I know for sure one card he's not going to target, and that's Mana Crypt.
Probably not the one that's working on his team here, also
Yeah.
attacking Randy's life total.
Yeah. All right, so Randy actually really needs to draw like two threats and about three draw steps, given what's going on now, which the deck is certainly capable
That
of
doesn't
doing.
help.
Also worth noting that if Randy draws the particular threat that is Mind's Desire, he's got enough mana that he can pay for Flusterstorms and end
It's
up in really good
true.
space. Oh wow, that was a good draw. Gush was among Ifro's buzz.
That was.
So Randy almost has just a turn if he loses this mana crypt flip. In fact,
That's true. It looks like Ifro got more out of this draw seven than Randy did.
he really did. I don't think Ifro could win the game, if Randy hit any other threat besides a draw seven, but it turned out that was the particular threat he hit.
Right, which is kind of surprising. It's kind of surprising that Randy didn't hit any threats off that draw seven, given how threat dense his deck is.
Yeah. So Ifro can now tap out for dig through time, but
Hmm.
I don't know if I like that. I guess you really can't flusterstorm anything. I always want to keep flusterstorm up, but it's just so hard to imagine flusterstorming here. The only relevant
So what do
card,
you want to
yeah, the
what do
only
you want to
relevant
hit here if you're
force of
Ifro
will.
off this more forces? Just
Yeah, I think that's
bunch
the
of
only relevant card besides. Actually, this is great. I would definitely let this force of will resolve.
oh yeah, this works out really really well for Ifro.
Ifro just hit a force of will off his dig through time.
Yeah, and a bonus library of Lang to keep it in his hand. This just works out in all sorts of
Yeah.
ways.
I'm sure Ifro was thrilled to see that. So now Randy needs to win the coin flip and get two draw steps, or lose it and draw Mind's Desire and hit the right sequence of spells. Well, he didn't lose the coin flip, so Randy gets another draw step here.
He he can still lose the flip on his next turn, right? That's seven coming in. He's at
That's true.
nine,
That's
so
true.
he's
He
still
actually had to hit multiple coin flips here. So Randy
so
now has to
he
win a coin flip and hit Mind's Desire exactly.
Randy's at like a little over 1%, right? He needs to draw that one card in his deck that'll get him out of this and survive the coin flip.
And Mind's Desire is an automatic win. It hits six cards or five cards rather, or six, yeah, six total cards. But
True.
Ifru does have a bunch of counters. It's not 0% that
No,
Ifru
you're
loses.
right. Given Randy's luck so far in this with seeing seven cards, he might actually Mind's Desire into nothing.
Yeah. And at this point, if you're Ifro, I don't think you do anything else. You just pass.
And
All right. Well, he,
well,
he won the coin
that
flip and he hit diminishing returns, but
yeah, but it's kind of diminishing at this point. It's not resolving, so
no. I mean, Randy has to
I don't
cast all
think
his artifact mana first, and Ifro's going to let it
yeah,
happen.
I don't think Ifro's all that concerned with Randy having additional amounts of mana because Randy's not playing Kyrvex Torch. I guess even if he were, Ifro could still counter it and pay the two, so there's no way this works out for Randy.
Yeah. It's too, do you think Randy should have included another utility land to expedition map for situations like this?
I don't think so because I think that once you start to do that, it just diminishes your ability to win off culture. We
Yeah.
saw before how sometimes you bulge and don't get there, and every extra land you add increases the odds of that happening.
Yeah, I also agree with that, but I don't know. Maybe he wants to put a fairy conclave in there and try to win by beats or something.
It's like a little bit of the Jeskai Ascendancy combo. Yeah.
Yeah,
And there, Ifro has finally broken the streak of the spell deck. And
yeah.
Randy was
That was
drawing
it. Was funny.
nothing.
Randy had a turn one win, but then didn't win because he hit the academy, and then Ifro still
Right?
lost because Randy drew mana. And then that game when it did look like Ifro couldn't possibly win because Randy's hand was insane, Randy time twisted Ifro into a great hand, and Randy drew a
Yeah.
force of will and six mana sources, or a misstep of force and five mana
Yeah.
sources. So
That's it's a low probability thing, but that's how Time Twister works sometimes. Sometimes your opponent just ends up with a much better hand than you.
that is one of the drawbacks, yes. But all right. So it
Yeah.
looks like up next we have Steve Menendian against David Williams. So we've got a nice little Dredge match back in action. We're going to actually see Dredge in the next two matches here. But I like my side of things a little more than I like the Delver side of things against Dredge. But I guess we'll find out. And I think we'll be taking a
I,
break
I
pretty soon here.
I agree. I think the matchup will favor you, but it's not a foregone conclusion by any means.
Oh, no. Most certainly not. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to have Randy and Efro actually doing commentary on. Oh, actually, no. I guess Randy can't tonight. So we're going to have Efro and I think it might even be you. We'll find out momentarily doing
Me?
commentary.
Commenting with
All
me?
right.
Oh,
On us.
okay.
Yeah. Well, looks like actually it's Tom Martell doing commentary with Efro on the Stephen Nenny and David Williams match. So we'll be back in a moment with that.
Okay.